Hello everyone. I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I am going to tell y'all about my book review of the book Born Confused. And I feel really bad about this. I don't know how to pronounce the author's name and I don't want to butcher it, so I am going to put it below for y'all to see. This is a wonderful Indian American book. And I originally read this back when I was in high school, and honestly, this has been one of my favorite young adult fiction books. I just think that it is such a unique story, and honestly, rereading it as an adult, I can see a lot of reasons why I really enjoyed this story back when I was a teenager. And I just feel like a lot of the subject matter in here just really relates to kind of like who I am as a person today. So some of y'all may be wondering, how on earth do I identify with this novel that is about a girl who is of Indian descent living in the United States? And yeah, we're worlds apart. Just yeah, absolutely. So to start things off with, Born Confused is a young adult story about this girl. Her name is Dimple. And she lives on the East Coast, so there's a lot of events that take place in New York and New York City and New Jersey and just a lot of those different areas. But basically, that's where she's growing up. She is a high school student, and her best friend is a white girl named Gwen. And Dimple and Gwen just could not be more different. But they grew up together since they were little kids and are best friends. But now becoming teenagers and becoming interested in boys and what's cool and all that, Dimple is just really feeling like she doesn't fit in, and she just really starts seeing a lot of the differences between her and Gwen, and it's not positive. And I feel like this is such an important story for people to read, because especially as a white person, to understand that struggle that so many people of color go through is this feeling of not really fitting in anywhere, because Dimple's parents are very Indian. They are very all about their roots and their culture, and they practice a lot of traditional things at home. There are a lot of traditional events that happen in the story, going to a wedding and going to different parties and interacting with different relatives who have very specific expectations of Dimple being a young Indian girl. And so her growing up with all of that is so at odds with Western American culture. And one of the first looks that we get of just this huge chasm that Dimple has to try to straddle is she goes to the mall and goes shopping with Gwen. And there is a mannequin in the store window who is wearing this very trendy outfit. And they're both like, oh my God, I want this outfit. So they both go in the dressing room to try it on. And immediately Dimple starts being like, oh no, this is going to be bad. And she can't fit in the outfit. And she's very embarrassed. And the girl that's helping her at the store is not being helpful and is just adding to her feeling bad. And she just keeps trying on bigger sizes and it's just not fitting. And she's about to cry. And Gwen comes out of the dressing room. And of course, Gwen looks picture perfect in the outfit because it was made for someone like her with her body type and not somebody like Dimple. And so she ends up ditching the outfit, and Gwen is a supportive friend. So I do want to reiterate that Gwen is not the bad guy in this story, at least not intentionally. There's some stuff that she does that is kind of the bad guy in the story, but it's more so that this is the push and pull that girls in high school go through, is that sometimes your best friend is the person you're competing with most. And that's just a part of being a teenage girl, no matter what ethnicity you are. It's just so starkly highlighted with the fact that Gwen is the typical white girl next door, perfect Western style body, and Dimple is an Indian girl. She's a bigger girl and she is very Indian, but she's also trying very hard to fit in into all these Western values. And so having to deal with that is very challenging for her. But then also the fact that she's coming of age and she's interested in boys and she wants to go out on dates and she wants to go out and party and things like that. And having to navigate that as a person of color is very difficult. And this is when she really starts to kind of realize that this world she's currently living in is not made for her, and her having to try to find her place in it. So we start off with, it is Dimple's birthday, which is why we went to the mall to look at these outfits, was to get her a birthday present, and that goes horribly wrong. And Gwen gives her her real birthday present after all of that kerfuffle, which is a fake ID. So they're going to go out to a movie with these guys and they're going to drink. And Dimple is trying very hard to be cool and very hard to impress this guy. And the guy is an idiot. The guy is a total idiot douchebag. But, you know, Dimple wants so much because it's her first real, like, you know, woo teenage date and woo, we're drinking and it's fun and whatever. And she ends up drinking way too much. And the guy is a douche canoe. And Gwen is a champ, y'all. She is a good friend. She stays up behind with Dimple and helps her and gets, you know, throws up in the bathroom. We've all been there. She's a good friend and, you know, does the whole shebang with her and all that. But as the story progresses, we learn that Dimple, what she wants to do in life is she wants to be a photographer. And she has one of those old-fashioned film cameras that she calls Chica Tica. And she says that she named the camera that because I guess that's what in Hindu culture the like third eye is called. And I apologize, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. But that's why she named it that, is because it's her third eye. As she is also kind of shy and she prefers to see the world through her camera lens. That's how she feels that she's able to express herself and connect with the world around her, is by taking pictures with her camera and then developing them in the darkroom. And she actually does all of the like manual like contrast and, you know, all that stuff with the chemicals and editing and all that, which is really cool to read about that process in this book. So you also get a lot of information about what's going on with her and different situations that are happening based on like what she's doing with her camera. So that's a really fun element to this story. And so then we kind of start to move into the environment shifting, where we're going not so much to these Western white sort of environments. We're going to more of these Indian environments. So Dimple is kind of taking Gwen with her to this, and much to her dismay, Gwen is fitting in there too. So to give y'all kind of an idea of what's going on with that, there is, they go to this Indian club where they meet this DJ named Karsh, Karsh. And immediately Dimple's like, oh, I kind of like this guy. But Gwen also likes this guy, and Gwen stakes her claim very quickly. And Dimple wants to be a good friend and is like, okay, I'm just going to let this kind of happen. But also because she feels bad about herself. And she's like, well, I mean, what chance do I have against Gwen? I'm not going to try to compete with her for this guy. So she's kind of like the third wheel. So the three of them, Karsh and Gwen and Dimple, start hanging out a lot after they initially meet him at this Indian club where he's a DJ. And it's more of this feeling of not fitting in anywhere sort of deal, in that Dimple is at this club playing this really modern, cool Indian music. Like, it's basically taking Indian music and giving it this really cool, modern nightclub sort of spin with Karsh, the DJ, and the other DJs there. But she still feels so uncomfortable. She still feels like she doesn't belong in this space, that she doesn't really know how to act in this space. And so while she's there, she brings her camera and she's just kind of taking pictures of the other people dancing and interacting there and stuff. And that's how she feels comfortable with interacting at the club. And as the story goes on, the three of them start hanging out on their own at their houses and stuff. And, you know, typical teenage shenanigans ensue with drinking and smoking pot and fooling around and all that kind of stuff. And Dimple is still feeling very much like the third wheel, feeling left out, and just having that inner conflict of, I want to be a good friend, and also I know I can't compete with Gwen because she is the ideal, and feeling conflicted about that. And so she also interacts with some of her female relatives and also some other Indian women in the community that she finds strength in. So this book is also an LGBTQ book in that Dimple has a relative who is gay and has a lesbian partner, and they live together. And Dimple is like, oh my God, whoa, like this is very different, like kind of like an I didn't know this was an option kind of thing. And there's this whole thing about like that's so against her culture and stuff like that, that, women are supposed to marry men and have children and all that stuff. So, dealing with that. And then also later on finding out that the family knew all along that, their relative was a lesbian and has a life partner and they're cool with it, which I thought was awesome. Yay for representation, like positive representation in a book. And another one is that Dimple meets a trans person. And at first she doesn't know that this person is trans, but she later finds out that they're trans. And a big part of this experience is Dimple just learning that there's so much more than this initial expectation that she had on her own culture, that she thought that there was just this one very rigid path with these very rigid expectations, that she thought this is it. This is the end all be all. This is all there is. And meeting these different people and finding out about them and how they're accepted in the community and how they're an important part of the community, and that, yeah, this is also part of Indian heritage, that is actually a big thing in India, is there are a lot of trans women in India. That's a big thing there. And so, her learning about that. And back then when I first read this book, that was kind of my first experience with learning about trans people. And I was just kind of like, oh, so this is a thing. Okay. And a big part of that is because I had a positive experience with this book. These things were presented in a positive light of being like, yeah, of course this is okay. Of course this is an option. And so, having that be one of my early representations of these sorts of people matters, because first off, my parents raised me from a very young age to be like, gay people are people, black people are black people, that, people are people. And it doesn't matter if they're different from you, that, we respect people for who they are, and we judge people based on who they are, the content of their character. Are they a nice person? Do they do good things? That sort of thing. That's what we care about. We don't care about what color they are, what religion they are. We don't care if they're gay or not. Like, that's just extra flavor text. We care about them as a person. And to have a book present that same sort of idea that they're just people, and that, it doesn't have to be a big tragic thing. Oh my goodness, that they can just be normal people in a book, being normal people living their own lives. And not only that, being these powerful people that help Dimple to navigate this really tough time in her life. Because let me tell y'all, like, being a teenage girl myself once upon a time, it's rough. It is rough, okay? And I can't even imagine how difficult it is being a person of color, having to straddle two completely different cultures that are so at odds with each other in expectation and all of that. Like, oh my goodness, like, no thank you. That is a whole lot of a lot on top of just all the struggles of just being a teenage girl. And so reading about that, especially when I was a teenager, it really helped give me this new perspective on people outside of myself and outside of my little bubble, and just different life experiences that other people have. And I think that that's just so important at any age as a reader, to be able to experience different walks of life and learn from that. So I really highly recommend this book. It's a great book. It's a really fun read. It's an easy read. Like, the level of reading in this, like, I am so not good at grading, like, what level reading stuff is. But, like, the book seems long, it seems like it's thick, but this copy that I have, it's also shorter than a normal book, so the pages are smaller, and the text is kind of a little bit of a bigger size. It's a fast read. It's a really fast read, y'all. And the way that, like, the style of how it's written, Like, it's very dialogue heavy. It's very snappy. There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of action. They're like doing a lot of things in a lot of the scenes. It's not just, you know, talking heads, lots of intense thinking. Like, they're doing a lot of stuff. They're going places. They're spending time with people. They're having interactions. There's a lot going on. And I learned a lot about Indian culture reading this book, and I had a lot of fun reading about it and learning about these things that I had no idea about. And I highly recommend this book. It's a fun read. It's a great young adult book. I would definitely say it's definitely high school age appropriate. I wouldn't really recommend it for younger than that due to the content, in that it's specifically about a high school girl kind of coming of age. So there is talk about alcohol and sex and drugs. So that's not really appropriate for little kids or anything like that. It's also a really great LGBTQ book. So even though the main character is a straight cis girl, there are gay characters and there is a trans character, and they are very well and positively represented, and they're not just like a one and done cameo. Like, she interacts with them a lot in the story, and they really help her with some of the stuff that she's going through and coming to terms with her heritage versus trying to fit in, and who she is as a person, figuring all of that out. So she interacts with them a lot. They're essentially like main secondary characters in this story. And I think that it's also a great read as a white person, and especially me as a white woman, in that reading this through the person of color's eyes, that for all intents and purposes, like, Gwen is me. I was not the popular girl in high school, so, like, you know, that part I do identify with. But being that really pretty white girl that, like, fits in all the ideal clothes and, you know, has that just sort of regular experience, and I don't really have to, like, question who am I and stuff like that in that regard. Like, I am Gwen in the story. And so seeing my point of view in the world through the eyes of a person of color, and seeing how different the world is for them and how they see me versus what their experience is and stuff, was such an interesting dynamic for me to explore. And I think it's something that's really just important for people to experience. And it's really fun. It doesn't bash you over the head with lofty ideals or anything like that. It's very much we're just going to present this story and you can feel however you want to feel about it, is kind of how it is. So it's a really easy read. It's not asking a whole lot of you. It's just kind of, hey, come along on this journey with this girl, you know, learning who she is and going through high school, basically. So yeah, I highly recommend this book. And if y'all have read it, please, you know, let me know in the comments and let me know what y'all think about it. You know, what some of your favorite parts of the story were. Personally, one of my favorite parts, I can't tell you because it's a spoiler, but I will tell so that y'all in the comments know. It's the part with the sugar pills, the sugar balls in the Tupperware. That scene is my favorite scene. So if you read the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. Beautiful, adorable scene. Oh, just gets me every time. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.